Dota, and yep, they go for it again. It pairs so well with the Leshrac. It gets you out of those sticky situations, and now it's perfect versus the Mirana arrow. Usually we saw Shadow Demon sort of picked up as a soft counter versus the DK. Same with the Abaddon, where you have this hero that's just very easy to get them out of those big stuns. And valuing it again, I like it a lot, especially now that there's a Luna on the field. Now you have an aggressive disruption target in addition to your defensive capabilities. And I think Infamous, it feels like they're picking into this a little bit, but I hope this time around they can definitely get a little bit more comfortable with the matchup. We saw yesterday teams adapting versus each other really quickly, so I think if Infamous can get on top of the Shadow Demon, they're going to have a much better time this time around.
Infamous picking up the Tiny for themselves there, which, considering the Mirana is sort of already in their lineup, feels like that Tiny is maybe drifting more towards the middle lane for alone. So you're going to have someone in a similar vein to what we were talking about with the Puck in that last match, that hero that can be sort of that tempo setter, that aggressive rotating kind of mid laner. But the thing is, we talked about it with the Puck in the last match. Alone didn't actually end up playing to those expectations. His Puck was not quite as aggressive and not quite as successful as Infamous sort of needed it to be. So here's hoping for their sake that if they are running that mid-tiny, things go a little bit more smoothly for them. But now they're going to sort of help things out a little bit with that Pangolier pick. The second they pick the Pango, you ban out the Bloodseeker. That is some 101 stuff there. But the Pango is going to be another hero that maybe plays into a faster pace. I think Infamous were disappointed in themselves in that last game with the sort of lack of aggression that they were able to put together. They're trying to address that here and now in game 2.
And it does feel like a really, really safe Pango game. Right now, Pango doesn't care about either of the supports, doesn't care about the mid laner. There's not much that he has to worry about. And when you talk about Sacred, really, you talk about two heroes. You talk about his Pango and you talk about his Timbersaw. So we've got one of his best. And again, now that you have this other hero, you have that sort of chaos factor in these team fights where he's going to get in deep. He's going to go immediately for these supports. And hopefully, again, they still need to execute it, but they have much better heroes, more adept heroes at getting in those backlines. They're less all-any on their initiation. While they still are very touch and go, they need to get their damage, they need to get in, and then they need to successfully get out. And that's where, again, Sexy Fat needs to play this sort of counter-initiation offlane style where he played it incredibly well on the Mars. He was consistently finding those spears, finding those two-man arenas. But now he's got to do it with Axe Call. And we saw in that previous game, Axe Call takes a little bit more finesse, especially when the enemy team, they can simply buy Yule Scepters, they can simply just roll away. I think now the pressure is definitely going to be on Sexy Fat having a fantastic performance. Though the load is going to be sort of put off him with the Nyx Assassin. Nyx Assassin's, it's a forbidden hero, right? We don't get to see it very often, so really we'll have to see what RDO is going to be able to put out. But again, and he was 8-1 and 18 in that previous game, had a fantastic performance, so I can definitely see him replicating it on an even stronger hero than the Mirana, so I'm excited to see what we're going to get coming from him. But if Infamous, again, this Pango pick, if they can get in the backlines, if they can get aggressive, if they can just stun these heroes, they're going to have such a good time. And they even go back for the Abaddon just because they don't even want to deal with Impale. They don't even want to deal with Split Earth. They're saying, you have this setup for these two heroes. No, we're going to pick Abaddon. We're not going to let you give it if you even wanted to go for that, put the Axe safe lane. So I really like what Infamous has put together. They've sort of got this all-around lineup. They don't do one thing particularly well, but they've just got a really solid start, and they really have no, I want to say weak bone. I think every aspect of their lineup has really good plays. They're really good at playing with each other, especially now you have the Abaddon versus the Shadow Demon, which will feel a little bit weird once that break does get kind of thrown into the mix. But Duster didn't even have enough gold to go for it in that previous game. So we'll have to see if he decides to value it this time around, even though it is really, really good, especially versus the Tiny. But we'll have to see. Fúria Jovem, they need either an offlaner or a safe laner here. I can only imagine the Leshrac's going to go back mid. And now they need something. They need an opponent. We always talk about the opponent versus the Luna. They need a safe laner that's going to be slightly adept at kiting her out. Otherwise, we've seen Lunas sort of do this 1v9 style where you get Satanic, you get a Daedalus, and then suddenly nobody can walk up to you. Everybody needs to run away. So I am slightly worried for Fúria Jovem whether or not they're going to be able to find that hero, because Infamous, again, their bans are kind of on the point. They banned all the other good heroes versus this Luna.
And to a certain extent, you almost sort of look at it as, with so many of those options taken away, maybe you have to take a risk. Maybe you go for someone that doesn't necessarily match up to Luna in the late game, but might come online that little bit faster to try and... Oh, God. None of what I just said could really be the thing, and they could pick an Enigma. That's not what I was expecting, but Sexy Fat will be on the Enigma. That puts us with the position 1 axe. So, to be honest, I don't know. Every time you see an Enigma, it's always going to be exciting, but there's been a lot of sort of hit or miss appearances from that hero in recent times. Fúria Jovem just have to hope they've got the execution to take advantage of that black hole. If they do so, it's going to be a little bit rough for Infamous to deal with that. Their heroes are not exactly the tankiest in the world, but it's all going to come down, again, as we always say, it's cliched to death, but it's going to come down to the execution. If Fúria Jovem can hit the black holes, they're going to be in a good spot.
And I like this a little bit more. I think they're saying with this pick that Leo, or rather Sexy Fat, if he did end up on that axe, wouldn't have had a very good time. It would have been a very slow startup, and you would have been very all-in-y on his initiation if you did end up picking another carry, because at the end of the day, playing initiators versus this Luna is incredibly difficult once you have that Ags, once you have the glaives to start bouncing. In addition, just having that nighttime vision advantage. I think if Furia really want to get a good initiation, a good team fight, we're going to see them actually prioritize fighting during the day, because at nighttime, Luna is just the queen. She is just unable to sort of get caught out of position. She's always going to be ready. She's always going to have the resources available to her. And this Enigma will slow her down just that little bit more, as well as giving you an actual lane versus the Luna. Whereas I think if this Axe did end up going versus her, it's not a very fun lane. You just simply don't have enough armor typically to lane up versus that hero and feel incredibly comfortable, as well as a Luna that's sort of getting steroided up by that Abaddon, where you don't have to buy nearly as much regen. You're going to be just healed up constantly, and again, if they ever mess up, and well, actually they can't even mess up because they have that aphotic shield, so the impale is always going to get sort of purged off of you.
Which, I don't know, sort of leads you into a bit of an interesting question here, because the Axe came out after the Luna pick had been sort of picked up already, so Fúria Jovem presumably sort of had an idea when they took the Axe that they might be sort of switching things up, which then makes the Enigma selection all the more interesting. But you have to assume, if this is the way that they went, based on the way the draft was looking initially, that they have to have, you know, some sort of, maybe not master plan, but at least something that they put a little bit of thought into, outside of Sexy Fat hits black hole and we win sort of scenarios. So we'll see if it pays off for them. They've got the 1-0 lead in the series, so I suppose, technically speaking, they could afford to take a little bit of risk here, but we'll have to see. The Infamous are sitting, I'm not going to say with their backs against the wall, as we mentioned previously. Yesterday, in these upper bracket finals, you don't get eliminated if you lose. They will drop down to that lower bracket final and have a second chance there, but if you're Infamous, that's not where your mindset's at right now. They want to win this game. They want to build momentum into Game 3 and try and get directly to that group stage really as quickly as possible.
Well, and going from getting third in BTS Pro Series 6 to being threatened to not even qualify, I think Infamous definitely know what they don't want, I think, here. They definitely want to make it all the way, but again, they've got a pretty good opponent. They've got a pretty scary opponent, because Fúria Jovem, again, they've just picked very solid heroes. I think giving them this Lash is definitely a calculated risk on Infamous's part, but it's only a risk that's going to pay off. Oh, yeah. Okay.
He knows what he's about. He continues to chase for the Shadow Poison stacks, got up to 5 on Michael, and at that point, if you're the Mirana, there is nothing you can do. You just have to sit there. The damage is too much for him to take, and Duster will find first blood. Sacred obviously tried his best, but level 1 Pango isn't exactly going to be able to do much defensively. So Duster, I mean, it costs him a fair bit of mana, but that's first blood going your way for, I'm not going to say no effort, but certainly wasn't the hardest kill he's ever had to find. And Michael, he's immediately getting hit again. That's 4 stacks on him and the Battle Hunger. So they're really just trying to make sure that this Mirana does not have the impact. We saw from RDO in the last game, exactly what that pause for Mirana can sort of do if she's left to her own devices. So Duster says, no, you do not get to have a game. You are going to spend the first couple of minutes either healing or stacking, as we see Michael trying to do here, but they're not going to let him rotate. They're not going to let him have an impact on the lane directly.
And I think really it all comes down to you don't really expect that Shadow Poison level 1 sometimes. You're very used to a Shadow Demons nowadays getting that Disruption level 1 and then having the illusions to put pressure on you, but instead just the punish comes out and oh, Michael's looking for some revenge here.
Duster is low. He doesn't have the mana for a disruption. He's not... Okay, he's not getting away. Michael just sort of preempting any sort of defensive play there, leaps in for the point-blank arrow, and that is a sort of nifty maneuver there. You break up that timing. The Shadow Demon wasn't expecting things to come quite that quickly, and that is going to even it up. 1-1 there. Obviously, the first blood bonus will favor Fúria Jovem just that little bit more, but as you were saying, at least Michael's able to get himself some revenge, and now they put themselves in a bit of a better position in this bottom lane. Duster does come back in with that disruption into the poison. But Leo, he's not going to be able to get close enough. He doesn't even have the taunt here, so there's really no threat of the counter helix coming out. He's just going to try and go for the right clicks, and Sacred, oh god.
Oh.
If he had gotten that final spin off in time, that would have been enough for the kill, but the swashbuckle does get Sacred away. But now, Michael, that's an interesting leap. Gets right into the mix there, and I don't think this is going to be enough to take him down, but he really is taking a beating in the early stages of this lane, and now Duster and Leo, they're going in again. They get Disruption onto Sacred, but they're not going to be able to do much there, and now the arrow. Michael doesn't have any points up in the Starstorm, though. If he could have gone for it, I think that might have been enough damage for the kill, but instead, he is once again going to get forced to back off. So neither side really in this bottom lane all too shy about these early engagements. A lot of action down bot, but feels like for the most part, Duster and Leo are sort of getting that little bit of an edge on their opponents. Last hit-wise, though, actually, yeah, last hit-wise, that is favoring the Axe a little bit. But now he's kind of alone in the lane, and Michael wants to go in. He is holding the arrow for as long as he can. And at this point, actually, yeah, that's unfortunate. Lost his opportunity, throws it out, but Axe is able to sidestep it, and even if the arrow hits, I don't know if they have the damage there, but without it, there's absolutely no way they can get that kill.
No, definitely not. And Duster is such a killer. He spots so much regen in this lane, it feels like, but he still has his boots in a decent amount of time, and they're putting a lot of pressure on Leo, but he already committed the swash. This is not a good situation for Sacred.
And now Michael's actually getting hit up by the poison again. Can he get it? I think one more, and that'll basically guarantee him the kill. Yep, there it is. Michael taken down. Duster gives his own life in exchange, though, so that is going to be a 1-for-1, but Duster was able to get the kill first. Now, Leo back into the lane. Doesn't have a whole lot of HP, but he does have that taunt. So if you're Sacred, you've got to be a little bit careful. He's waiting for enough mana for a swashbuckle just in case, but has to sort of back away from that one as we're seeing pretty much all of the action focused in on that bottom lane, but back mid, Belesh does get hit up there. Alone went in for the toss play. The arrow will now fly as Michael tries to rotate over, but once again, Michael's just a little bit off with that aim. He is free-firing that arrow, doesn't exactly have the setup over the last two attempts, but still. If you hit those arrows, you have the opportunity for the kill. Without it, you're just not going to be able to lock it down. So, at least we're starting to see the action shifting to other sections of the map. It's not exclusively the bottom lane, but bottom lane is certainly still seeing quite a bit of fighting. Sacred dropped low once again. Michael was able to get back into position in time, though, to defend his teammate, but Sacred has pretty much no regen. So, he's going to be falling back. His courier is delivering... Actually, no regen. That is his Orb of Corrosion being finished off, so he may have to take a trip back to the base, and while he's gone, Michael is not going to have a whole lot of fun here. Getting pushed back once again. Able to turn around at least for the arrow, so he's still picking up those last hits here and there. That is always going to be one of the benefits of the Mirana, but there's not really a whole lot he can do in that lane by himself. You see him sort of backing off to go for the stacks.
Yeah, and okay. Doesn't want to get both of them. Instead valuing the ability to fight over the runes with his arrow if they wanted to go for that play, and this will force Sooths back to base, and Alone will be able to pick up this regeneration rune. RDO just a little bit off the mark. Infamous heavily rotating with their supports, especially with Sacred out of the lane. Just no reason for the Mirana to ever sit tight. But this
Sexy
top lane has been
Fats.
more or less a draw. Yeah.
Got to get hit up by the Lucent Beam. There's going to be the Avalanche, the toss,
They're scared.
no
They're
toss.
scared of the
Sexy
hole.
Fat's not dead. There's the toss, but not enough. Sexy Fat lives, turns around for that brief stun onto A. He removes it immediately with the Aphotic Shield, but now this is where you're maybe a little upset with your teammate. A got thrown in. They were thinking that that was going to be enough damage for the kill. Instead, he's trapped, and never mind, he's not trapped at all. He quite literally walked away from 4 heroes. That's a bit of a rough one, but with the Leshrac now joining the fight, they're going to try and turn this one around. Alone, taking a lot of damage there from both the Nova and the Edict, even getting slowed up by that Lightning Storm, and RDO is in there with the Impale to finish the job. So that goes pretty terribly. Infamous go from trying to rotate up with about 3 heroes looking for what they thought was a quick and easy kill onto the Enigma to losing their mid laner, and I think the worst part about that, Sexy Fat lives, contributes to the kill, and did not have to use Black Hole.
And again, it feels a little bit strange just because they knew that the Enigma was level 6. It's not like the wave was pushed into him. Oh, he just peeked up as soon as we were about to dive. This is now a scary situation. He was saving a skill point because, again, you want to be as greedy as possible, and I think Alone might get his man here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That time around, they're able to do it. No reinforcements there for Sexy Fat. So Alone shows a little bit of perseverance to get the kill, but that is leaving him out of the middle lane for a decent amount of time. The good news, at least, is that Michael has sort of rotated over to soak up some experience himself, but you do lose out on a little bit of efficiency having the Tiny up in that top lane for so long, but Sacred wants the fight. The arrow... Actually, the arrow hit the creep rather than the Leshrac, and I really do hate to sort of harp on that, but that's now the 3rd, 4th arrow from Michael that's been just that little bit off the mark. Every single time he's missed those arrows, it feels like they could have gotten the kill if he'd have hit it, and they absolutely would have had the kill there onto the Lesh if it had connected that time. So the drop-off in accuracy from Michael is kind of hurting them a little bit. They're losing out on opportunities, while Infamous are now losing heroes elsewhere on the map. Sexy Fat and Dust are able to push in onto A, the Abba alone in the top lane, and they managed to bring him down.
Yeah, and even then, you saw Sacred, he was scared of the Edict. He knew that if he stuck on that Leshrac, he could have gotten another bounce guaranteed, but they just ran out of gas in the tank, and here we go. We've got max level Edict. Leshrac starts to be Leshrac. You don't have roll for another 15 seconds, so they do need to be a little bit cautious, but they're rotating pretty heavily up here, but they've got a really good ward on the Furious side. They're going to scout it alone. Yep.
There's going to be the Black Hole. Alone, caught out. Do they have the damage, though, to make this happen? They don't get the Leshrac quite in time, so this one's actually starting to turn a little bit. Alone gets hit up by the Aphotic Shield. He's not going to be taken down just yet. He has the Moonlight Shadow here to protect him, but that Pulse Nova is still hitting him up, and it looks like Duster is able to get the last little bit of damage in there to finish it off. So Alone does go down. Sexy Fat, though, fell in exchange, and at this point, the Lesh isn't out of this fight still. He's lost his support as Duster gets taken down, and now he just has to try and run for his life. Sacred, though, hit him up with a Swashbuckle. They get that lucky shot down as well, so the Lesh dropping dangerously low. RDO, though, trying to come in for the assist. He will be able to both keep his teammate alive and finish off Sacred, and now A, too far forward. Didn't have another shield, doesn't have the ult, so RDO hits him with the Vendetta for the bonus damage, and that fight turns pretty significantly. Infamous really looked like initially they were in trouble as Alone gets jumped in on, then they start to turn the fight, then they unfortunately overextend a little bit, trying to run down the Lesh.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Infamous, they lose 3. They don't even dislodge Sooths at all from this top lane, and actually, mistime this. He didn't know about the tiny TP, so he misses the splitter. So I think Duster might just be the punish.
Yeah, Duster is going to get sacrificed here as Infamous will be able to find themselves that kill. So, well, nifty little play for them to make that one happen. But now, well, they're looking for more. I don't know about this one. They are pushing forward. Sacred, though. Okay, he wants in. There's going to be the Rolling Thunder to set things up. They jump in onto the Leshrac. Can they blow Seuss up quickly? Yes, they can. They find that kill. Leo, though, he's going to try. RDO's coming in as well. They've got the Impale up in a few seconds, so maybe if he can land the stun onto multiple heroes, they can make something happen. He's trying to fake it out. Doesn't want to go in just yet, but Leo will pull the trigger. Taunt down onto 2. Sexy Fat coming over as well. No Black Hole, but he is going to be able to throw down that Midnight Pulse for the damage as A gets taken down by the Culling Blade, but Sacred is still chasing after this kill. They want it onto RDO. Michael comes in for the Star Storm to find that final bit of damage, and now it's really starting to break apart for Fúria Jovem. They have gone too far forward, and they are going to be punished for it. Sexy Fat dead. Leo, though, still trying to hold on. Popping the taunt, but there's just way too too much damage coming out onto him. Good play from Duster in with the disruption. That's actually keeping Leo alive. Can he make his way out of this fight, though? I don't think he wants out, actually. He wants back in. The Leshrac will be returning full HP and mana. They're going to try to lock down alone, but Leo needs to be able to catch up. Needs to get into position for the taunt, but rather than chase that much further, they're actually going to back off. They don't know where the rest of Infamous are, and chasing up that ramp would have been a rather sizable risk for them. So they back off instead, and that fight will finally come to an end.
Just so well played by Sacred and Alone. They're just playing on the cusp.
Ooh.
I think Sacred might have bit off a little bit more
Yeah.
than he could chew.
Oh, okay, Michael. Good defensive play there, but it's not going to be enough. Sacred will still fall, but Alone, well, he goes in with the Avalanche into the toss, takes down both the Courier and Duster himself. So I said the fight was coming to an end. Not quite. Still keeping it going there, as there was one last round, but now it looks like everybody's going to be backing themselves away. But the thing to note for Infamous right now, they walk away with the net worth lead 1k in their favor. While all of those shenanigans were going down, Lumiere's just farming. He is going to work here. Dragonlance picked up. Mask of Madness finished off as well. So that net worth sort of skyrocketing for him in comparison to the other cores in this game. So if you're Fúria Jovem, sure, you mostly come out kind of even kill-wise, but you had every single player or member of your team into those engagements, while Infamous were able to just sort of hang back and really only commit fully with 4.
And that's where you do need to start to fear the Lumiere Luna. He's had so many stacks set up for him by his team, as well as them just running at the enemy triangle. They've spent so much time top on the Infamous side, and it's put a lot of pressure on the Axe. You see the Axe has half the last hits of the Luna, and it's not even his fault. Of course, those are a lot of ancient camps. He's been in his triangle as much as he can be, but at the same time, this Luna, as soon as she starts to make her move, that's when these team fights, they start to get really difficult, because again, you don't have that fantastic initiator. Everybody is going for these sort of side items because, again, that's kind of the playstyle. That's how they've slotted them into themselves position-wise. You got a mech on the Enigma. You don't have a Blink Dagger. You're going the Mantis now. You're carry Axe. You're trying to get a Yules on the Nyx Assassin. And that's where maybe Infamous can catch you off guard, because you do have that fight starter. You do have the Blink Dagger on the Tiny being built up. You're going to have a Blink Dagger on the Pango eventually, but just having roll is the more important tool. And they're putting pressure on your tier 1 mid, but they're going to defend on Furia, guaranteed.
Yeah, not willing to let that tower go. Meanwhile, they take a tier 1 of their own up in that top lane, as the Leshrac is finally starting to sort of do more Leshrac things, pushing his way through those objectives. And now, well, tier 1's taken both top and mid. That is going to clear up a little bit of extra space across the map for them that they could potentially take advantage of. They're going to have to set up some actual vision in that area, but for now, they want the fight instead. They're going to get in onto Sacred, or maybe not. Swashbuckling himself away, going for the Rolling Thunder now. A and Michael both coming in support. They're going to turn this one into a fight. Looking to get onto SexyFat, locking him down. No Black Hole coming out from him just yet. Did pop the mech, but that's not enough to keep him alive. SexyFat falls, and now the Eclipse coming out from Lumiere. They're going to blow up the Leshrac, and this is going so poorly for the Fúria Jovem side. They're trying to fall back. Duster is dangerously low. Artio, nice play in there with the stun, followed up by the taunt out from the Axe, but the problem is, I don't know if they really have enough damage to make this one happen. They've taken down Sacred, but it's going to cost them too much. Duster and Leo both go down. Artio now on the run, but he doesn't really have any spells left to work with. He could turn around for the Impale. He does connect onto the Abba, but he's still getting chased down by the other two. The Carapace, though, stuns up Oh my god, stuns up everyone, and I believe that's just a stray tower shot that actually takes A down, so the kill gets split, but that's a kill that really Infamous had no business giving up, so Artio's at least able to sort of extract some sort of toll there, but overall the fight still goes kind of poorly. Infamous able to close that one out, taking care of the immediate threats right away. The Enigma and the Leshrac were just popped really in the first few moments of that fight.
And that's where the big reason why you picked this Enigma hero versus the Pango is that as soon as you get that black hole down, he can't do anything versus you. He just has to sit, wait, roll around. But that's where this mech feels a little bit strange. I think you got it off in that fight, but you see him going back for the Midas for a very, very good reason. It's just you need Midas to get that BKB in a decent amount of time, but it just feels so far away now. It feels like the next 5 minutes, he's going to need to really hard focus on finishing up this item, and then he can look for a BKB, and maybe 5 minutes after that, it just feels like now you are going to have to deal with the Infamous aggression without really any help from this Enigma. Because again, if the fight has already started, while you can still get that black hole down, all it takes is a Lucent Beam, all it takes is an Avalanche, and then your 2-minute ability is on cooldown, and then what else do you have to do? You have to wait. Again, you need this timing. This is the only issue with the safe lane axe. You need the shard, you need the blink dagger, and you need a whole lot of net worth, and right now he just doesn't have enough.
They jump in onto A, but borrowed time is popped immediately, and now Sexy Fat, you don't want to be here right now. There's going to be the black hole, though, coming out. Hits onto 2. Where's the cancel? They actually don't have it. The avalanche missed. He didn't have the range. A does fall. Sacred is now just going to try and roll and TP himself away, so he's going to get himself out of there. But Michael going to get hit up by the Carapace, slowed down now by the Lightning Storm. The Impale is a bit off the mark, didn't quite have the range, but now Infamous are going to turn around. Alone wants in. He's going to go for the Avalanche into the toss. Sexy Fat, though, did hit him with the Malefice. That is going to lock him down. Leo's now in there with the taunt to follow it up. Alone gets taken down, and now if you're Infamous, I do not know if you want to be here any longer. Time to bail out. They've used the Moonlight Shadow, but the detection is still there. So Michael is going to get run down. No, he's not. He gets outside of the range of that sentry, and he is going to be okay. So Michael's able to fall back. They're trying to regroup. The problem is Lumiere is a little bit further to the south, so if they do go back in for a fight, they don't have the Luna's damage to back them up. And it looks like, yeah, without that Luna, they're not going to commit all the way in for that one. But these team fights starting to get a little stranger. Sexy Fat, I don't know, realistically speaking, he should not have gotten that black hole off for the entire duration, but Alone just sort of misjudges how far forward the Avalanche would actually go, and that kind of changes up the nature of that of that fight. Nice arrow in. Leo accidentally steps into it. The Eclipse will be deployed. Yeah, wishful thinking there from the Nyx Assassin. He was TPing in, but there was no way he makes it in time to save his buddy. So smarter move to cancel it. Remains with the bulk of the lineup, as they're going to try to set up mid onto Alone, but really, they don't really have the means to close that gap in time, and with Lumiere TPing back in, it's time for Furia to back themselves away.
And that's sort of the theme where we are going to see Furia heroes running away from Infamous heroes a lot now because, again, there is nothing to really fear. It's the Nyx Assassin. You fear the Carapace, but after the Carapace, you kill everyone else. And even Sacred, he's just immediately going for the Enigma. He's just aiming the right targets here, and he's going to get chained up in a second here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Sexy Fat taken down. Alone was in there with the sort of blink into that Avatos, and Silver Lining is RDO gets away, but yeah, now Duster's caught out over on the other side of the river. He was trying to get down some wards while the other side was distracted, but really wasn't a big enough distraction to actually keep him safe. So Infamous finding more kills, building up more momentum, and again, that Luna, I mean, you saw Lumiere actually participating in that fight, but he's still farming up at an insane rate. 12,000 net worth. Next closest is the 8k on Leo's Axe, so but he's just getting away with whatever he wants right now. 2-0-4, insane amounts of farm, and a pace of play that he is going to be more than comfortable with moving forward.
And right now, as soon as he gets this BKB, oh, yeah, mid.
Are they going to go? They're going to go, okay. Alone wants in. His teammates were a little hesitant, but yeah, Tiny's tanky enough. He can make that happen. Sexy Fat taken down, no more threat from him. Black Hole obviously wasn't up anyway, but not even going to have to deal with the Malefice or the Midnight Pulse for any sort of damage or lockdown, and they're still hanging out on their opponent's side of the map. They pop that Moonlight Shadow. They don't have an immediate target, though. They do jump in mid onto an Illusion, but as soon as they realize that's not a real hero, they do back themselves away. Alone's going to at least finish it off, just to make sure it doesn't continue to push out the creep waves. But this is really just sort of the state of the game right now. As you were sort of saying, Infamous, they can push forward wherever they want, and Furia Jovem's heroes have to run away.
And you did get that Midas finished up on the Enigma, but again, you get the Midas so that way you can get a real item, and at this rate, it's just a little bit too slow, and that's why I was so convinced that Sexy Fat was going to be on that axe, because that play happens mid. In the previous game, you had your Mars there. You had that player to immediately give a little bit of a counter initiation, a little bit of anything, but instead it's really just we're watching our teammates die and we're waiting for our next timing. Whereas Infamous, all of their timings are coming out so fast, and nobody needs gold as much as the Luna. They can be so efficient and so effective with just 2 blink daggers and just running around killing people, while Lumiere does all of the CSing. He's got 300 last hits to his name 20 minutes into the game. The man just keeps farming, and there's no one to contest him. There's no one to play counter to him. At least now it's 20 minutes. You will have the Ag Shard finished up on Leo style whenever he chooses so, but he feels like he needs a Blink Dagger. They definitely feel like they need an initiator right now on the Fury and Jovem side, but nobody is really filling that role just yet, and yeah, they keep finding these picks.
And the thing is, the thing that's funniest to me right now, they are playing right now on the Infamous side the way we were sort of envisioning them playing based on their game 1 lineup, right? You have your carry who's just going to be able to buy time to farm. You've got an active mid laner. You've got an off laner who can sort of make his way into those fights as well. So in game 1, we didn't really see that happen. Here in game 2, they're really making the most of it. And I think a lot of it comes down to they have put Michael on a more active hero. The Mirana sitting at 4, 2, and 10, much like RDO's performance in the last game. Having that sort of aggressive support who can come along for the ride really helps give them not just more opportunities, but also more confidence in their ability to take those pickoffs as well. So Infamous weren't quite as aggressive as we thought they would be in the first match. They're making up for it here, and Fúria Jovem don't really have a great response at the moment. They're just trying to wait it out, weather the storm, see what they can pick up later on, but and the later this goes, the bigger the Luna gets. And speaking of which, Infamous are going to push their way into the Roche Pit, looking for that Aegis, presumably for the Luna.
And then that is a huge disaster for them. You've got the Ag Shark finished up on the Luna as well. Once you get this Aegis in her hands, then who's going to be the one to kill her twice? You need to save that that black hole now for the second life if you actually want a real team fight going in your way. But now you have this Aegis, you're going to feel so safe pushing these towers. You're going to feel so safe going into the triangle. It feels like now the entirety of Infamous's map is just going to get larger and larger, and it's just perfect play. I think Infamous are just playing so clean right now. They see Leo. Okay, Leo sees them, so he will get the blink out, but this
Sexy
is just
Fat
them running away. This can't be good enough.
Sexy Fat gets blown up in the south side jungle. Duster falls as well. So yeah, Leo, he's able to get himself away, but they're still finding kills. And yeah, Dardio is in some trouble here. Good play with the Carapace. Can he TP out in top? Okay. Cancels his own TP there, but I don't know.
He felt the Luna coming.
Yeah. To a certain extent, yeah, the Luna's coming. She could stun you up, but if you cancel your TP there, you're pretty much guaranteed to die anyway. So damned if you do, damned if you don't. RDO just decides he's going to go out on his own terms, and he does get picked off. 3 dead in total across the map. Fúria Jovem, again, just don't really have any responses right now. They're trying to bide their time, but bide their time for what? For a miraculous black hole play, maybe? Sexy Fat has now finished off the blink, but still needs that BKB to really guarantee the initiation. So can they hit the black hole? Yes. Yes, they can, obviously. And it could turn the fight around if they do hit it. It's just going to be so dangerous. And if they go in for that black hole and they whiff, then Infamous are just going to go all the way forward, full steam ahead. Tier 2s, Tier 3s, racks just going to be directly in their sights. So you know you need that sort of team fight play, but you're still very hesitant to actually commit for it.
And that's where you will see the gap between the Luna and the Axe sort of gets a little bit smaller here, just because Lumiere is focusing on pushing them down those towers. He's not walking from camp to camp like he was at the early stage of the game. But at the same time, we're not seeing the same Leshrac we did in the previous game, where he's afraid to make these breaks to the side lanes. He's constantly running away, and it just feels like Fúria, they need to dodge for such a long time. He gets one creep wave bottom and then has to TP back to Fountain. The effective area that Fúria can play right now is just so small, and it feels really just because of their last hero decision. And here we go, Alone's going in again.
Avalanche starts it off. Good mech, though, coming out from Sexy Fat, and now Infamous got to be a little bit careful. They've taken down Duster, but they're pushing for more. Sacred wants in. He's going to hop over the wall. Sexy Fat's already dead. He's down for the count. Duster, though, did buy back, but the Enigma actually doesn't have enough for his buyback, so there's really not going to be any sort of fight here, and at this point I think Infamous know it. Duster is nice to have back on that front line, but he is not going to represent much of a direct threat to anyone. So Infamous find the kills, force a buyback, back themselves away. They've taken the Tier 2 tower mid, still need to get that Tier 2 up top, but outside of that, you know, presumably speaking, the high ground is going to be the next objective for them, and how long do they have the Aegis for? Still another 2 minutes, so the window is there. Fúria Jovem just really have to sort of buckle down and focus on that high ground defense.
Yeah, and I think Infamous, they're giving a little bit too much respect to their opponents right now. I think they're giving them a little bit too much space. Alone, when he made a break for the bottom wave, they're definitely just fixing their lanes. If Alone gives them the play here, that'd be a pretty big mistake, but now he's got a BKB on the Tiny. There's even less for him to worry about, and right now, it doesn't feel like Leo can blink call Manta and kill anyone. It feels like up until he gets that next item after the blink Manta, he needs that, and then he's going to start feeling like that threat that we all know this Axe safe lane to be. but Infamous are just giving them no openings. And again, you see them set up. They're making the play on the other side of the map. They're trying to push in these sideways. They're trying to steal the enemy Luna's triangle while they're getting objectives, but there's no counterplay. There is no counter pushing. There's just a Luna with 20k net worth, 26 minutes into the game.
Oh god,
at you.
Alone
What
wants
a
in.
toss.
All right, hitting up the Leshrac. They're going to blow him up right away. There's going to be the buyback, though. So, Sooth is back into the match. The problem is, Duster gets picked off as well, and he used his buyback in that previous high ground defense. So, he is down for the count, not going to be able to get himself back in. And at this point, Infamous really have an opening to try and push their way forward as Alone blinks in, going for it. BKB popped a little bit late, but it's not going to matter. They still take down Seuss. That's going to be him out of the fight. The Enigma, meanwhile, hasn't popped the BKB yet. He just doesn't get the opportunity to. He is getting run down, chased back all the way to his own fountain. He will fall, buys back immediately, though. So they're still trying to hold this as Alone. Does get hit up there by the taunt. Leo's able to lock him down, and now, well, what else can they get? Sexy Fat pushes forward. The Malefice is there onto Michael, but I mean, where's going to be that threat of the Blink BK, or excuse me, not the Blink BKB, the Blink Black Hole? He's waiting for that Blink to come back online. Needs to be very careful with those glaives bouncing around. They're going to try and go for it. Leo blinks in. Ooh, does not hit that onto much of anything, but Lumiere does get still stunned up by the Impale. Does Sexy Fat go for it? He's got the Blink. He's going to drop it. There it is, onto 3. And oh god, the Mirana even leaped into it. Michael's going to get caught out here. He's dropping low. They might just lose everybody. Sacred, however, was able to TP himself away, but Leo, all right, that is the play he needed. That is the infusion of gold that they were hoping for. Problem is, it does cost them Tier 3 tower and the ranged racks going down, but the melee still stands. And Furia, I don't know, holding the line almost seems a little overly optimistic there, but they do force out quite a bit with that teamfight victory.
And really just perfectly timed from Sexy Fat. They didn't get any of the Aegis regen, so there wasn't even sort of a soft reset for the Luna there. So they had enough damage to actually take her out. And I think Alone got a little bit clowny, got a little bit too ahead of himself, had his BKB already expended, was just sort of running out the enemy team's fountain, and that was a crazy TP. It's really fortunate he didn't get punished there, because both Leo and Rodeo were set up to get him behind the tower if he actually was in that kind of position. But now they do need to be careful. They don't have... Oh.
But they used a couple of buybacks in that last fight as well, so yeah, they can't afford to lose too much here as... Yeah, there's going to be the Nyx Assassin jumped in on. Alone blinks forward. Avalanche tosses there, and yeah, RDO taken down. Does have a buyback, though, so he can get back in. Meanwhile, further to the southeast, Michael getting a little ahead of himself there. His teammates were all focused around that Tier 2, looking for the kill onto the Nyx Assassin. The Mirana just gets maybe a bit overconfident, thinking she could sort of set up a secondary play for them to chain into. Instead, Fúria Jovem sort of spring the trap, turn that into a 1-for-1, and that's going to make things a bit easier for them. Although now Leo... yeah, getting close to A there. Not a fight he really wanted, considering the fact that Infamous had multiple heroes there in support. So, just gonna back off. Everyone goes their separate ways. The Manta Illusions will push out that middle lane just a little bit more. So, that is always the benefit of this sort of Axe play, and with the Leshrac in there as well. The amount of sort of pushing and wave clear that they have is always going to be a significant factor. Infamous can out-push it if they group up, but in terms of just a sort of resting state, Furia are going to be able to sort of push that out. You see Sexy Fat even sort of contributing with the Eidolon pushes down bot.
In that, again, it's where the gap, it's getting smaller and smaller between the Axe and the Luna. And now, there is a big difference maker, that being that Lumiere has the full Daedalus on his hero. He had components on the Courier that was dead for another 30 seconds, I believe, when the Aegis expired. But now he does have the item that makes this Aghanim Shard feel absolutely broken. The problem is, you've allotted time for this BKB to be built up on the Enigma. It's not quite there just yet, but 14 seconds on Black Hole, then you can look to be making a few more plays. If Roche respawns in 3 seconds, that would be very unfortunate for Furia. But not going to get it. Might respawn in another 30 seconds, but the longer this Roshan takes, the more likely they are to actually take it out of the hands of Infamous, where... Ooh, Duster. What can you do?
Living that pause 5 life. Going to get himself picked off there to create a distraction, and that's going to be sort of the alarm bells ringing. He gets picked off mid, so his teammates know it's time for us to clear out from our opponent's side of the map, get back onto our own side, and really make sure no one else gets picked off. And at this point, I mean, you look at Duster, he's only dead for another 15 seconds, so yeah, it sucks. You're giving up a little bit of gold, but if your death keeps everyone else safe and farming, Duster is gladly going to give himself up in those situations, and as you mentioned, that gap is beginning to close. Leo's getting closer to the Luna. You see the gap between Alone and Sooth's really shrinking there as well, only about 1,200 above for that Tiny. So Infamous obviously still have the advantage, but as you mentioned, they're just giving a little bit too much time to their opponents, and all they're getting is plays like this. They pick off Duster again, which is nice, but it's not going to be enough. But now Lumiere, okay, did get into the Roche pit. Takes Roshan, gets the cheese for himself. I believe Sacred, yeah, Sacred was given the shard there. So focusing on an actual objective now instead of just sort of bullying Duster repeatedly. And the question is, what do they now look to do with this? They've got Aegis, they've got cheese. They could look for another high ground push. Obviously, they have to push out a lane first. We mentioned earlier Fúria Jovem with the ability to sort of split push these lanes. That is going to sort of take a little bit of the wind out of Infamous's sails, but you still see the group up happening. They want that melee racks. They weren't quite able to get it last time thanks to some incredible sort of teamfight efforts there on the back end by Sexy Fat and Leo, and they may be called upon to pull some similar heroics here. But the BKB is now finished up on the Enigma, so he is going to be able to get in there, and there's very little Infamous will have at their disposal to try and cancel out that black hole this time around.
And here we go. We got the splitter spam going. We do have a full Satanic on Lumiere as well, though, so this is going to feel a little bit scary. And again, we're fighting during the daytime, so this is going to give Furia a little bit more of a fighting chance. It's very difficult for Infamous to ever make the full setup to the next set of racks just because of this splitter spam. But at the same time, you walk a little bit too far forward, those glaives are going to seek onto you, and they just do so much damage. So yeah, I think Infamous, yeah, they're drawing the lines. They say, we got to fix our lanes, guys. Once we fix our lanes, then we're going to be okay. And Lumiere got spider legs. That's crazy. Now he doesn't need a boots. It's slotted in. Spider legs is just simply the best item you could get on these ultra carries, because now you've got another item slot. You could be effectively 7 slotted at this rate. So we'll have to see. Maybe the tier 4s will change that up, but this is boding very well for Infamous and Furia. They've got some big item timings. They've got the item Scepter, 500 gold away on the Nyx Assassin. They still have Black Hole, but these opportunities, they're going to be very slim. Their openings are not wide. They need to be very, very clean with their execution, because again, you're playing versus a Luna. All it takes is the tier 3 tower to go, then the glaives start bouncing, then the initiation just absolutely gets killed. And P.
Bit of a pause coming out here. We had some pause shenanigans back in game 1, although that wasn't really the team's fault, as the server decided it needed a bit of a break, but don't see anyone dropping out this time, so hopefully we don't have any sort of similar scenario. But ET, as you were mentioning, the margin for error here for Fúria Jovem is microscopic, really. They need everything to go their way. They need the black hole. They need Leo to taunt up multiple heroes. They need the damage from the Leshrac to be present continuously throughout the fight. That's been a real big issue for Sooths in this game, and you can see it's still sort of an issue. Durability is not fantastic for him. If he does get caught out sort of alone, he does not last very long, and without his damage, things get a little bit rough. He's working his way, as you can see, towards the BKB, but progress is not even remotely close enough for this upcoming fight. So they need the lockdown, they need to keep the Leshrac safe, and then they actually need to do the damage to win the fight, which kind of seems obvious, but hasn't quite been there for them as consistently as they need it to be. So there is a lot of pressure on them right now as Infamous will make their way up to the high ground. Aegis still has about 2.5 minutes on it, so Lumiere not really feeling a lot of pressure, but Leo is in there, going to go for the taunt. Aphotic Shield, though, does get dropped down, so Lumiere is going to be okay for now. The Disruption, though, will put him under. And actually, yeah, that bought a lot of the time from the Satanic. Lumiere does still heal up, but Satanic's down. Only 15 seconds, but oh boy. Oh, Leo's in again. Taunt comes in. He's trying to pull him back into that splitter, but Lumiere's got a little bit too much range. Doesn't quite work out the way that they wanted to, so he avoids that stun, but now RDO in with that Aghanim Scepter is going to be able to distribute a lot more in the way of both damage and lockdown, but the tier 3 tower is beginning to fall. Lumiere, though, very low on both HP and mana, and he is going to presumably be taken down here. No, Satanic comes back up for him once again, going to be able to heal himself back up, but he's stunned, taken down. Now Sexy Fat's in, Black Hole connecting onto 2. They're going to try to lock this down, but Sacred, he actually bashed him. Swashbuckle with the Skull Basher will immediately stop that one. Sexy Fat can no longer really get out any further damage and control, and it's all going to fall apart. They lose Seuss, they lose RDO. Sexy Fat is on the run, not going to be able to make it back to the fountain here as Sacred will track him down for the kill. Buybacks no longer available on any of those dead heroes. And it looks like Infamous have finally sort of broken through and finished this one off. Leo, though, not willing to go down without a fight. Jumping in for the taunt, connecting onto about 2 or 3, but they just don't have it. There's not enough damage. There's not enough life
Yeah,
remaining.
there we go.
And that's the GG call. That was big from Sacred. Skull Basher sort of pays off there. The black hole, don't know if it would have been enough had it gone its full duration, but limiting it immediately just completely shuts down Fúria Jovem's game plan, and Infamous close it out.
And that's where it's just the sort of penultimate moment where you catch the Abaddon without his ultimate, you catch the Tiny with his BKB fading, and it just simply isn't enough. I think Fúria Jovem really shot themselves in the foot. I think if they were planning on going for a pick like this, and honestly, with the Shadow Demon, you don't really plan for picks like that. Of course, maybe Shadow Demon and Duster, that's sort of a combination, that's sort of a well-known thing. But when you end up last picking Enigma for Sexy Fat, I think you really needed a lot more things to go right for you, where Infamous didn't really give you those opportunities. I think they were really planning on this Enigma being able to shut down the Pango a lot more in these team fights, where I think in actuality, as soon as those team fights actually got started, the Pango's completely fine. You have to be so tight with your black hole, and even once you black hole that Pango, it's not like anybody can hit him during the Rolling Thunder, so then you're all reliant on your ranged heroes, which you don't have, dealing physical damage to a Pango that is spell immune. So it just doesn't really work out. It doesn't really feel like what they had going for them was going to be enough. You had the fantastic black hole top on the Aegis timer. Aside from that play, though, they tried to be super obnoxious. They just weren't able to get out on those lanes, I think, well enough. I think, again, they're playing at such a big deficit from that early to mid game that I don't think they really had enough left in the tank to pull anything out of that end game. And we saw for a second there how obnoxious their high ground could be. The Split Earth, the Nyx Assassin Ags, the disruptions, but Infamous, they did such a good job aiming that Shadow Demon finally. They were able to get on him. You saw Alone with his Enchanted Quiver constantly just throwing trees at him, set him down to 400 HP, so maybe he'll randomly die to a glaive. I think Infamous, again, you got to be careful in these best of 3 series picking the same heroes, the same lineups, because your opponents, they get comfortable, they get used to it, and they definitely played much better versus it this time.
Mm-hmm. That is, I think, the biggest thing. We were talking about it in the match itself. They were looking and feeling more confident. They were sort of playing much more aggressively than they did in that game 1 situation for them. And yeah, Fúria Jovem was sort of just hoping that some similar heroes would do similar things for them. Very much not the case. And I don't know. At the beginning of the game, I mentioned they took the Enigma after they had sort of already seen a couple of the heroes, or excuse me, not the Enigma, the Axe, after they had already seen a couple of heroes on the other side, and then eventually sort of had to make that transition. I assumed that they sort of did that on purpose based on where they had picked the Axe, but they had a plan. It just wasn't necessarily one that sort of lived up to actual combat once the match got underway. So it feels like Fúria Jovem for Game 3 just going to have to go for something that's a little less sort of cutesy. Just run what you know is going to work for you. The Enigma as a sort of surprise counter pick really did not pay off. And going into a Game 3, that kind of risk really doesn't have much of an appeal to it anymore.
Yeah, and I hope that, again, we just want to see good Dota. We don't want to see this sort of game of footsie where one team avoids the other for 15 minutes. So I definitely think this is going to be the best game of the 3.
Yeah, so Game 3, going to be coming up in just a little bit. Winner takes all here, advances to the main event of Pro Series 7. The loser, meanwhile, will drop down to the lower bracket final for a second chance tomorrow afternoon. So we are going to be stepping away for just a moment here, getting Game 3 set up. So stick around, and we'll be bringing you that third match in hopefully just a few minutes.